Oh yeah, thanks. Let me just.
So started recording again.
Right, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see your.
Great. Yeah, so thanks for having me on. So I'm talking about the Decide project, and there's a bit of brand confusion. We've also got My Decide, which is like a little sub part of it, which I'll talk briefly about at the end. So Decide is a research project which is sort of led by where I work at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. And it's about this idea of sort of precision citizen science. Just a bit of context. Volunteer collected biodiversity data is very useful and is very important for all sorts of purposes, for assessing the state of nature. So the state of nature reports, where looking at trends and distributions. We're looking to assess the impact of our interventions. This is also very much recognised that recording brings benefits to the individuals. It helps people connect with nature and support their well-being, and it's a way that people can take action to help nature. When we think about citizen science data, or including biological records, we kind of think about it on a bit of a continuum. On one end, we've got very structured monitoring, where maybe we've got a strict protocol, particular sites are revisited on a particular schedule, quite rich data is collected. So maybe instead of just what species are there, there's also how many were there, sort of abundances. And that's really useful in terms of being able to make these long-term trends, because you've got the same data in the same place over a time period. And then we've got maybe semi-structured data where there's a protocol, but there's a bit more flexibility in terms of you can monitor where you like. For some example, these are the big butterfly count, where you follow a protocol, but there's definitely you can do it in your garden, you can do it in a park. You're not told where specifically to go. And then on the other end, we've got unstructured recording, where you can record what you like, when you like, and you can use platforms like iNaturalist, like iRecord, like iSpot, submit to local record centres. There's all sorts of ways you can record. But in general, we kind of see, especially recently, we're seeing a lot more of this unstructured recording because it's a lot more accessible now. When we've got tools like iNaturalist, where you can install it on your phone, you can take a picture and you can upload records. So all of these have their strengths and their weaknesses in terms of how you can use the data, but we're definitely seeing a lot more unstructured recording. But one issue is that this unstructured recording is very spatially uneven. Because people can record where they like, then what they like, we see massive biases in space. We might look at this map on the left and you say, okay, it's got quite good coverage, and then you zoom in, you can see you've got different records of different species in different places, but massive gaps in others. And this impacts how usefully we can use this data. If we're trying to look at long-term trends, and we've got a record in one place in time, and then we look, 5 years later, and we haven't got any records, we're not sure if that's just because of the spatially uneven data where no one has been there, or is it actually because the species is maybe no longer there. So this sort of very patchy data makes it quite hard to interpret. And so the sort of the premise of the DECIDE project is the records are valuable, but we don't just need more records. We need to get more informative records. We're thinking about filling gaps, but going beyond just filling gaps. Just because within the spaces where there aren't records, where it would be useful to go first. How do we choose where to record beyond just where is our local park or our local area or something like that? So this is where we introduce DECIDE projects, multidisciplinary with lots of really great partners, and then we've had co-design at the heart. So we've been working with recorders. So the DECIDE project is looking at butterflies and moths, and we've had lots of really good engagement from butterfly recorders about co-designing this. And so the premise is this idea of adapting sampling. So we've got some records, but we can also use these records to run some models which tell us where, even if we don't have records, it can predict whether there might be or might not be a species there. So we're using models. But the models are sometimes uncertain about whether a species is going to be there. And so we use this sort of uncertainty that comes out of the models to then target where we should be sending people in order to, ideally sort of redeploy people to sample in these high priority areas. And this contributes to the species records. And you can see we've created a feedback loop where over time we're not just filling gaps, we're filling the important gaps where a model that's trying to work out where the species are is uncertain. So that's the premise. And the way this uncertainty, where the recording priority is calculated, we've kind of got two components. We've got where's the model uncertain, where is the model least confident about what species there. But then we've also got information about where records have already been made, and this is the DECIDE project is trying to cover the main recording platforms. So it shouldn't, in an ideal world, it wouldn't matter where you record. So it will pull records from iRecord and iNaturalist and iSpot to combine this information. And then it shows you where the high priority places are to visit for butterflies and moths. I thought the best thing to do would be to demonstrate this. This is always high risk strategy. Can you see a map?
Yes.
Yeah, great. That's good
working.
News. Super. So yeah, this is as part of the project we put together the DECIDE tool. So if we go down to where CH is based in Wallingford, you can zoom in and then you can click create a DECIDE map, and this kind of gives you this heat map of where there's hotspots to go and record, and you can see the darker areas that are where there have been records made. So okay, they're lower priority, but then we've got these yellow areas around here, and then this is just looking at butterflies, and as you can see, it's not showing. So okay, we need this species from this location. It's more of a general priority for that taxonomic group. So in addition to that, we can also get some suggestions. So maybe a particular location about where to go. And this is pulling information from where local footpaths are and things like that. So for example, this big yellow patch, you think, surely it's really high priority. Why aren't there any suggestions here? Well, this is a little airfield. And so we don't want to be directing people here. We still want to show that it is high priority. We would still like to get records here, but we wouldn't necessarily advise that the casual recorder wanders over there. But you can see we've got some spots that are around here along this road that maybe we need records for, and you can interact with a map. So you can click on a pin, and it kind of gives you a bit of a scorecard for okay, it's high priority within this local area because the model is uncertain and there's not much recording activity. Some estimate of how many species the model is predicting, and then a little bit about just the local area. So, okay, it's found there's a bridleway and lane nearby, so that's why it's recommending it's a good place to go. So that's the main feature, and we're kind of trying to see Decide as like a recording companion app. Like, you don't do the recording through Decide, you still use your existing tools. You might use iRecord, you might use iNaturalist, you might send them to your local counter recorder, but you can use this as a little helper in your planning stage, just when you're planning your next visit, or maybe you're out and you just want to see what higher priority areas are nearby. You can just get some records, because it can be hard to, it would be exhausting to record every single butterfly you ever saw. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but being able to prioritize, oh, this is an important record because it's in this location, is a useful tool to be able to do, and it kind of helps you know what the data you're providing is useful for research and these sort of things that we use this data for. Okay, so that's the Decide tool, and I kind of also want to touch on a little thing that we've been running over the summer called My Decide. If you've been using iNaturalist a bit before, then you know at the end of the year you get this nice personalized feedback of all the different things you've been doing over the year, and it's really great. We want to start exploring how could we use this sort of personalized feedback driven by data to make recording more engaging. So within the Decide project, we ran My Decide, where we wanted to relate people's recording activity through iNaturalist or iRecord, because we can pull that data, and we want to send them emails about what they've been doing, and sort of show the potential of this technology to make recording more engaging. So this is quite a brief thing. The last email is going out tomorrow for the season, so unfortunately it's not really something you can sign up for, but you know, keep an eye out for these sorts of things coming along. So one of the emails we've been sending out is, it highlights a particular record in the local area. It was a record that was made in the highest recording priority area, either by you or by someone else. You get a nice little picture and you get a little map. We've got another email which is kind of relates to the Decide project, where it says, okay, some records are being made here, but actually not too far away, we need some records down here. So yeah, it's sort of about going the extra mile and thinking about actually closer where you normally record, maybe there's some little gaps that you can fill. We had one email that went out, was a map, so it was showing where your records are in relation to other records. So you can see in this map someone has recorded a couple of records in the center of the map, it kind of gives you a nice little perspective on where other people are recording around you in the past 30 days. And then the last of the emails, which is probably one of the more complex one, we were trying to think about this idea that as you record, you kind of build your Decide impact score, which goes up over time as you record in higher priority places, and it kind of pitches you up against the other recorders. And through this, people could give feedback. So we've had really rich, valuable feedback from all these emails that we've sent out. And that's kind of the wrap up. I mean, the project's about recording butterflies and moths, and we're now at the end of September, so it's not really something I can recommend you go out and interact with. But you can still explore the tool. It can kind of give you suggestions. Obviously, there are still some moths out for a few more weeks. So have there's also a feedback form you can kind of go through and give a bit of feedback. I think these sort of companion apps for recording, I think there's definitely a useful role for them, and hopefully this is kind of an interesting example and kind of sets where we will be going in the future with these sorts of things. Great, thanks very much.
Thank you, Simon. I did actually sign up for the My Decide project and got the emails, and it was quite useful because my local patch is actually one of the areas where there isn't as much recording. So it's quite nice to kind of know, actually, it is worth my while to record species that I might have recorded quite a lot of, but in that area, because it was actually, you know, have an impact and useful. So, you know, for next season, whether it's butterfly moss or another species, I thought it was a useful tool.
Great, glad to hear.
Yes. Lisa, a hand up first.
Thanks very much, Simon. I think this approach has so much potential because it just gives you that extra focus and purpose to your recording and the feedback, which is so vital. Where do you think CEH will go with this next? Because, you know, where to start and how to follow on from such a great project?
Gosh, I mean, I'm not really any great decision-making place in the side. Sorry, in CH. But so Decide was set out as a demonstrator project. So the idea was to just sort of try out lots of things and see what works. And we learned a lot of really important lessons from it in terms of how people would receive this sort of prompts to, you know, we're telling people they shouldn't record where they normally record, they should record somewhere else. But people have received that actually very positively. And I mean, it's also, we've definitely learned there's a big diversity of recorders, and some people received it more positively than others. But on the whole, I think people do see what we're trying to do, and there's buy-in into this sort of project. So I would definitely expect more things like this to emerge. And yeah, we've set up Decide so we can, the ideal world would then broaden it from butterflies and moths into other taxons. And yeah, I think stuff like this will happen. I can't really say any concrete, but
Thank you.
Tony.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Simon. It's really nice to see other people doing these things. We've been modeling predictive models using Maxent for a number of years, and I've shown them, demonstrated to people, look, you know, just down the road there are ponds there that probably have newts in them, but nobody's gone and looked at them, and they all go, oh, that's very nice, and then do nothing about it. It's very depressing. I've found patches where there are 6 ponds very close together, one full of GC newts, and nobody's looked at any of the others, and you just think, oh. And yet that whole iteration of repeating the model after you've got the extra records and improving the model, and we've been able to demonstrate that where in particular on a SSSI, loads of records of bats were recorded for a particular project, and if you included them, it looked like that species only lived in that part of the county because it biased it so much. So we take those out, and all of a sudden it says, oh, they live elsewhere. So it's really interesting just to be able to demonstrate that that's actually a behaviour of models, and you have to be careful about what questions you ask, really. But yeah, nice to see. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I think this sort of building in these feedback loops will become more of a. I don't want to. Well, I can throw out some technical lingo that's going around the idea of digital twins, which is something in this research where the idea you've got a model and you've got the real people, and building those feedback loops. I think we'll see more of that emerging. So yeah, I think you're definitely on the right track. We just have to stick at it.
Well, I think we're going to be using it effectively to predict where things are and make the assumption they're there until somebody says they're not, in terms of talking about the diversity that's there, so that people are, particular, you know, developers, consultancies are informed. Look, there's a high probability, unless you don't find them, there's a high probability, and you should take that into account. So maybe we'll get the records that way.
Kieran.
Hi Simon, thanks for that talk. I mean, the Decide project is a great project. I think there's no denying that. And as Lisa said, I think there's so much potential. And as you've stressed as well, it's a pilot. It's about testing the technology. I just kind of want to float the idea. For me, it seems really obvious that the end home for this should be on the apps themselves, so that it's not a companion tool and it actually fits within the app that you're using, so that you can basically turn on the tell me where to go thing on iNaturalist or on iRecord or whatever app you're using. Is that something that CH will be looking to explore further down the line, or am I too far ahead of you?
I think it's interesting. In some ways, I think there are strengths in it being an independent, because you can work from the tool and then it can just direct you to whatever platform you want to record in. I think Decide has been very intentional in it not wanting to tie itself to a particular platform, recognizing that people submit records in different places and people have different preferences. I don't really know what future direction. I mean, iRecord is obviously, and iNaturalist is continuing to develop, and if that's what they see as an important feature for their respective platforms, then it's something we've got the ideas and shown that it can work, and there's nothing stopping it. But I think there are strengths in it being sitting actually independent from those as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I get that it's pulling data from more, which means it's more accurate as well, because it's taking into account the whole data set rather than the data set from a single app. I'm just thinking from a user perspective, if we're looking to get the general public to use something like this, I suppose I don't see them switching between apps while they're out doing it. I see it as something that you'd need to be able to use within the app. Now, I don't know whether that means it needs to be specific to each app, or whether it's something that can also be pulled in as a layer for the mapping on the apps. But I think as Decide gets developed further, it will definitely be used a lot more, in my opinion, and it is just my opinion based on no evidence whatsoever. But I think it will need to be integrated into recording apps as well. But yeah, that's just, I'm not very good at keeping my mouth shut.
No, I totally like with respect to the MyDecide, getting people to sign up for something like that, or engage, you have to make the hurdles as small as possible. And actually, one of the reasons we went for the sending emails rather than building some other tool for people being able to explore the data was because people, we're going to them with the emails. So yeah, I definitely respect that. Breaking down the barriers to as small as possible is important.
Can I comment on the CH angle of Kieran's question? I think we are interested in making species distribution models, these predicted maps, widely available, and that would be hopefully sitting on an API, like a service somewhere, that would then mean an app developer on whatever platform could draw them in, and that might include the uncertainty as well. So that would kind of make it available for any app like this to include that sort of information in it. It also kind of does full loop back to, I think Chris had a question with the AI earlier about the AI not being sensitive to your geography. And that's another place where kind of having SDMs for species could help to improve performance. So that's something we're thinking about, because we use SDMs in some of the apps, in some apps that we work on. And then if we did build that service, we'd want it to be available to anyone who could see a use for it.
And by the way, I just want to stress something as well. I'm not for 1 second saying at all that CH should have to build things that are then available for free for others to use. I understand that that there are costs to maintaining developing, maintaining, etc. So although I'm saying it would be great in the app, I'm not saying that that wouldn't come with a cost for iNaturalist. Obviously not for iRecord because it's both CEH, but yeah.
It's not CEH policy, but I believe it should be free.
Yeah, no,
That's a personal
I get it will be used more if it's free, but what I mean is we have to be realistic about what things cost. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not saying everybody should do everything for free. Just putting that out.
Tony, yeah.
I was just wondering, Simon. I presume there was a heap of other data sets other than species data that you're using in the predictive model, and is that the case?
So yeah, we're combining the species records with environmental data, so like the land use maps that CEH produces, and climate and biogeography and bits and bobs like that. Yeah.
The reason I ask it is because that's one of the limitations of trying to roll it out into an app kind of scenario, because it relies on multiple. I mean, Maxent, I think it's 6 or 12 data sets you need, including rainfall and sunlight and aspect and all those kind of things that it's required to make that sort of judgment over where things might be found. So that would be a restriction on the widest sense of having on your phone, although phones are pretty good now. It's a lot of data.
I did. I can have a look.
Yeah, there's plenty. There's always tech hurdles, but that's what we're there to overcome.
I mean, accessing over the internet is a different thing, but on your phone is a completely different thing of a lot of data download.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry, 5G world. Sorry.
No, thank you, Simon. That's brilliant.